I would like to take you back to the moment where I first had to really challenge my own identity. I was sitting in a planning meeting for the march pictured above. I was in a crowded room filled wall to wall with students full of restless energy that had similarly put aside trivial homework for the moment at hand. The organizers approached the front of the room, and everybody hushed. They asked all white people to leave and all students of color to stand aside as allies, as this was a movement for black students and not all students of color. And so I kind of froze. This is where someone like myself, an Afro-Latina, a murky mixture of things in a colonized light-skinned body, starts to tread lightly. I understood centering blackness, but what if I was also more than that? Did that make me an outsider? Was part of me supposed to be there, part of me not? Was I really as woke as I had thought when I first walked into that room? And regardless of the discomfort of trying to figure out where I belonged in the movement and the mini existential crisis that I had, I volunteered to use my photography in order to document the march from the point of view of a person of color. I went on to photograph many more student movements after this, and while I'm grateful for the way that it changed my view and my relationship with my photography, it still left me with a lot of questions. Where did people like myself, who could not clearly define themselves into any one movement, really belong? And what does this have to do with wokeness? And so I decided to follow my questions as a Gerald Gill Fellow at the Center for Studies of Race and Democracy here at Tufts. There, I'm looking at the word woke, where it came from, where it's going, and the culture that has been built around it today. And though it's kind of an undefinable term, I'll take a second to try and define it as being aware of systems of power and oppression, how your identity is placed within that, and how that intersects with the other people around you. And the goal of my inquiry today is to look at how this word has evolved into something that is counter to what its original intentions were. And though this word has been adopted by change makers of all types, races, genders, ethnicities, and sexualities, it has its roots, as most cool things do, in black culture and teachings. Most online sources attribute the word's first appearance in the Erykah Badu song Master Teacher in 2008, where she sings, "What if there was no niggas, only master teachers? I stay woke." As dreams echoes in the background. Unfortunately now, the word is more often than not ascribed to liberal white college students. And though the word did not appear until recently, this idea of being aware and being cognizant has been around for quite some time. If you go all the way back to W.E.B. Du Bois, there's been a call to wake up and be conscious of what's happening in our society and how that affects black people. But as we have seen in the current popularization of the word, it lacks the acknowledgement of its black roots and importance. And so we evolved from a word that was coined by Erykah Badu to something completely different. If you look up this word in Urban Dictionary, the first definition that comes up is being aware, being cognizant of what's going on in the community, relating to racism and injustice. Person one, why do you bring racism into everything? Person two, you're clearly not woke. Well, that definition and others like it were at the top as of at least a few months ago. And now, one of the top definitions is, being woke is a state of perceived intellectual superiority one gains by reading the Huffington Post. Allie is so woke. At brunch, she explained how wearing anything other than Chuck Taylor's or Tom's was really a microaggression. Hey, did you get your Amy Schumer tickets yet? And so this change does not only speak to a change in the definition, but also a change in the culture of how we use the word. And so we evolved from Erykah Badu to Amy Schumer, and now the word covers baseball hats, Hillary Clinton campaign t-shirt memes, and even babies. And so, what does this mean for us making movements today? I decided that I came up with 3 weaknesses in the way that woke is used today. 1, it has achieved popularity to the point of giving social capital to those who use it. 2, it isolates many with its language of higher vocabularies. And 3, it does not bring together communities of color in the way that it could inspire. And so woke, as it was originally defined, can be used as a building block for activism and allyship. And I'll take a moment here to define ally as anybody who is a friend to the movement or cause, but may not express that same identity or cause that the movement is fighting for. The New York Times recently released an article entitled "Earning the Woke Badge," where it compared the allies of today to the radical chic Americans of the 60s and 70s. So those who merely attended Black Panther cocktail parties then, now photograph themselves reading the right books and tweet well-tuned platitudes in an effort to cultivate an image of themselves as politically engaged. And this fear and critique of how media interacts with activism is not new. And though Gil Scott-Heron spoke of a different media, of TV and radio, his words still hold the same importance as they did when he first penned them, when he warns us that you will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. And though this seems to put a general negative note on the way that we view media and social media especially, we have seen that social media can and has been used as a vehicle for radical change and solidarity. As we saw in the tweets from from Palestinians to Ferguson protesters, giving them advice on how to deal with tear gas. And if we look at the efficiency, power, and effectiveness of the Black Lives Matter movement, we can attribute that to social media. And while wokeness can have this incredibly empowering effect, it can also be incredibly disempowering. Because there is this assumed body of knowledge or vocabulary that is necessary to be involved in being vocal or to be involved in activism, it can give a person more right to speak or lead over another. And I have witnessed and even admittedly thought less of somebody because they were not woke enough. And many times this happens in communities of color where a person of color is assumed to be automatically endowed with this information merely because they exist as a Black or brown person in America. But yet, the vocabulary, the jargon, the buzzwords are so inaccessible. And so when I hear a Latino person say all lives matter, I hear pain, I hear misunderstanding, and I hear a failure in our community to combat anti-Blackness. I hear a failure in both of our communities to stand together as one and in conversation in the face of common threats. And now these tensions are also not new. And this is where we can look to the teachings of Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party, in which he warns us that we must gain security in ourselves and therefore have respect and feelings for all oppressed peoples. We must not use the racist attitude that the white racists use against our people because they are Black and poor. Many times, it is the poorest white person that is the most racist because he feels that he may lose something or discover something that he does not have. And so if we look at this idea of competition between communities fighting for justice, and we can see how that tension thus upholds white power, we can look at how this relationship between modern wokeness and allyship and standing together also upholds white power in a different way, especially when communities of color become woke only to their own liberation and not the liberation of all Black lives. And so this poses an interesting question. How do we place our identities successfully in solidarity with a movement that is not ours? How might wokeness be a barrier to how we do this? And I believe that this unknown tension has greater implications in allyship and how we stand together. And I think this is because we view this idea of wokeness as only tied to oppression. But what if it is also tied to a universal freedom? Because you see, an ally cannot be free while they are living a life that benefits only because of the enactment of violence on others, and especially Black people. And it questions us now, in this time of great uncertainty in our country, in how we will act together. And I think that many would agree with me that we are in urgent times. And it is here that we can take hints from history because this has happened before. As history proves, divide and conquer has been a successfully employed colonial strategy for many generations. And so I ask us now, if we cannot be divided, then how could we possibly be conquered? And history has also shown us that while media has always proved an unknown variable to activism, it can wield knowledge and build community in powerful ways. And in order to aid us in these movements forward, I look to Angela Davis as she urges us when she says, "We must extricate ourselves from this narrow identitarian thinking if we want to encourage progressive people to embrace our struggles as their own." And so I personally participate in fighting for justice behind the lens of my camera as I attempt to document what's going on in the movements, as I try to place myself in them. And in this moment in history that is so eerily reminiscent of the civil rights era, with its rise of fear in our country, the rise of tensions across borders, and the enactment of violence on Black bodies, it necessitates a radical and urgent change in the way that we stand together. But yet, there remains this barrier to the way that we stand together if we keep wokeness in its modern form central to the way that we interact. And while unfortunately, I can't offer any concrete solutions today, I can offer what one might call an educated suggestion. I suggest that we need to take a few steps back before we can take a step forward into progress. First, we must step back and evaluate how this word woke inspires the way that we use knowledge and media. And if we take a step back and we learn to love Black people and uphold Black people as much as we love and uphold Black culture, and if we take a step back and we're able to bring progressive people into our movements and embrace our struggles, then we might be able to form a broader base for longer standing success in our movement. And it will be then that we could then take a step forward and see that the revolution will be live and it will be ours. Thank you.